Your mind will press delete, and then you pick up the pieces before they knock on your door, baby. So pick up the pieces so they come knock on your door, baby. Pick up the pieces, pick up the pieces, pick up the pieces, pick up the pieces.
Good Friday morning. Welcome to Hired, Navigate Your Job Search. You know, I do love that intro. I had probably searched 1,000 songs when I was looking for an intro for this show. And one of the things I found, if you haven't been in job search or recently in the last 10 years, it's what it really feels like. You're picking up pieces. And one of the things I coach is these 3 stages of this job transition process. The first stage is, the loss stage. Just what just happened to me? How do I deal with all this? Who do I say? When do I say it? Those types of things. And then we try to move you into that transition phase, get you prepared for networking, etc. And then finally getting into that confidence stage that you feel like you own your job search versus being a victim. And then more importantly, you move forward. That's not to say through the process, you might get, like, for example, and I don't really understand why HR people do this still, but they send the thanks but no thanks letters on a Friday. And so you get 3 of those and you can find yourself all the way back in the lost stage. But now you know the process, so you can get out what I call the La Brea tar pit of job search and get back to that confidence stage. So I want to turn around and introduce Heather before I bring her on. I've known Heather for probably more than 6 years, and so she's an accomplished executive with over 20 years of experience driving high impact results in range. I'm reading, as you can imagine, right here, of the industries including oil, gas, advertising, national wellness, pharmaceutical, and performance improvement. Her unique ability and execution of strategic initiatives has made her an invaluable coach, which she'll tell you a little bit about, and mentor to senior leaders domestically and internationally. Heather has a strong background in business development, consulting, marketing, public speaking, training, mentoring, and coaching, and previously held leadership roles with Fortune 500 companies in the healthcare corporation. Beyond her success business ventures, Heather involved her time in upturnships as an interview coach. We all can need some coaching, right? Formerly, she served 3 years as a volunteer mentor with Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenges. So I want to welcome to the show, Heather.
Good morning, George.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. That was such a nice introduction. Now I've got to back that up.
Yeah. So before we get started, why don't you tell me, because you are in your own little transition and you've already completed it. So tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks, George. Yes, I have jumped into the deep end of entrepreneurship. So Juliet Fox, my amazing partner, and I decided that we were going to lock arms and start a retained executive search firm focused on technology leadership, and it's called AvidEdge. And we are excited to bring a new experience and really redefine technology executive search in the marketplace. I had been working with Franklin Covey, an exceptional company, for 5.5 years, most of which focused on strategy execution and consulting with companies, and just found that I was ready to do something different. Felt like I could contribute in a bigger way, make a more meaningful contribution to people, and really started to analyze, well, what really energizes me? And when I looked at that, one of the key things was connecting with people, connecting people to people, and encouraging, inspiring, and helping people to find what they need and want. And so as I went on that search to figure out what that is, I had this epiphany that, I need to be in this space. And so I called Juliet. We had a great conversation. And we decided that we could be a powerhouse helping people more than ever in this very crowded space of retained executive search, but bringing something really different and very impactful.
Well, we're glad you're out there to help us find the right candidates. Speaking of which, This is the show where we're looking to try to find out what are employers looking for right now.
Right.
You know, things have definitely shifted in the last 6 months. You know, prior to that in December, anybody, close to anybody, who wanted a job had a job. And then all of a sudden in January, these mountains of technology layoffs happen. And so the first question I have is, what are some key quality attributes that employees are currently seeking in candidates for executive level positions?
Well, George, you're right. It has changed. And while we know that the skills that are needed for the role are important and things such as adaptability is important, I will tell you, in my opinion, and what I've seen from clients and what I've seen in the market is that a culture fit is one of the number one things. You can have the right qualifications on paper, you can match the technical skills exactly, but if you're not the right fit culturally, or if you as a talent are not finding that company that's the right cultural fit, it's just not going to work. It's not going to be sustainable. So I would say culture fit is really important, and asking those right questions about, what is your work style? What is your leadership style? What are the types of leaders you like to work with? What is the style that works best for you? All those types of questions are really important. Second to that, I would say from a leadership and executive standpoint, it is somebody with very high EQ. You can come into an organization and be a driver, which is necessary to turn things around or make things happen. You can come in as, I call, either a Caesar, command and control, or you can come in as a Gandhi. We all respect Gandhi, but being that consensus leadership by consensus doesn't always work either. So finding that person that has that beautiful balance, that art and science between, okay, I have the business acumen, I know what it's going to take to turn this company around or to drive the results that we need to get, and I know how to empower my people and communicate with high fidelity to the front lines to get people involved and feeling like they're not just doing what I say, but they want to be involved and they're engaged. One of the things that we do know for sure, George, is that disengagement is costing companies millions of dollars a year. So if you can be a leader that has that ability to, I would call it, to use Liz Wiseman from her book Multipliers, the multiplier leader, someone who multiplies the genius of those around them and not diminishing people around them, I think you're going to be really successful. And I think you're going to be a candidate that people want to hire.
No, I agree. Totally. How important is industry specifics experience versus transferable skills, like you talked a little bit earlier, when it comes to evaluating a candidate?
I've given this thought, and I've had a lot of conversations with candidates and with clients about this. It really depends. I know that's not a great answer. But if you're in an organization where you have, let's just take pharma, for example. Let's say that you have hired a VP of IT or a CIO, and you've had somebody in that role for several years, or maybe you've churned through a few, and they came from the industry. It might be time to look for someone that comes from a completely different industry, but who is a solid leader, who is a right culture fit, who can bring innovation and some unbiased thoughts and objective opinions about how to do things into that organization. On the other hand, if what you're trying to do, you really feel like we need somebody that has this pharma experience and really understands this industry, well, then probably the better fit is to hire somebody that already has that experience. I would just say to employers out there, don't limit looking for great leaders. Because when you get to the level of a C-level person or a VP level person, it is much more about, again, I'm going to say it, culture fit, who they are, and also the transferable skills they're bringing to lead and empower and motivate and inspire a team to drive results and execute what needs to be done, more than I know this industry really well.
Now, I'm sure a lot of our viewers also have experienced where they brought somebody, a company's brought somebody maybe in the top 10 of the industry, right? Oh, they're industry specific, yeah. Right? They know all the players, etc. But they really rubbed the team the wrong way. And
Absolutely.
Honestly, they're not in the organization very long because they kind of got chewed up and spit out.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
And
I
to,
would say that the culture integration and the leader assimilation is huge, regardless of who you hire. It's really important.
and to your earlier comment, seen where it's really important for the leader to understand, again, back to your point, characteristics, those types of things that you're looking for. And it doesn't always have to be in the industry, as long as you have the leader that's going to turn around and carry the vision and execute it to what
Hmm.
you want it to do. Now, it's not going to happen overnight,
No.
especially if you've had problems for 5 years. Don't put it on the new leader that I expect it to get it done in a year, right?
Hmm. That's right. Well, and I'll also say, the space that Juliet and I are in at AvidEdge and doing the retained executive search, a big part of what we do is our AvidEdge discovery process. And the reason why I bring that up is because we are not just about talking about the job rec. We want to understand the business. We want to understand the culture. We want to understand, to the point you just made, what are the obstacles that have been there to the success of other leaders in that role? Or if this is a new role, what do they see as being the obstacles? And if the culture that they describe on their website is not what's really being lived out, we're going to push back on that. We're going to challenge our clients to help them be the best they can be and be a real partner. And so, in order to have a sustainable, successful onboarding experience and someone that's going to stay and last and do a great job and really get velocity to driving results, you got to understand what's going on in the organization before you make that next hire. And you may need to take some time to remove some of those obstacles first.
In your experience, what roles does culture fit play in hiring process for executive roles, and how can candidates demonstrate their ability in the company's culture? Because I can tell you, my interviewing process is always about a lot about culture and people. And tell me about each particular member of the team, and how do they like to be talked to, and how do they like, how do they, execute?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, culture is huge, and as you know, I've already highlighted that at the top of our conversation.
Right.
I would say that if someone is if they're the right fit technically, and by the time you hit that leadership level, they typically have all the technical skills, George, and they have the experience that they need. It
Right.
really does come down to culture, and so I think the onus is on not only the company and the recruiter, but also on the candidate to ask the right questions. Questions like, tell me how you guys like to work. Even almost, I've told candidates, even making it kind of like you're not really seeking for the answers, but you are, and you can get the answers out of them without them even realizing what you're asking. So
Yeah.
something like, tell me about your vacation. How do you guys take vacation? Do you work hard when you're on vacation? Or if somebody says, oh, we work hard, play hard. Well, okay,
Mm.
if that's what you're up for, that means you're going to be working 70 hours a week. And that means that people are going to be contacting you on vacation. And you're probably not going to get a lot of sleep or have a lot of balance, or what I would call work-life blend in your life. So there's some questions that you can ask like that to really understand. And even flat out asking, tell me about your culture. Just an open-ended, tell me about your culture, because they will tell you things and reveal things, and even with their body language, that may say something even different than what they're telling you. And again, I go back to the search firm. If you're working with us, we're going to make sure that we bring about transparency on both sides. So whether it's with the talent, we are going to help them to understand exactly what they're walking into before we present them. And on the client side, we're not going to let you get by with telling us one thing and doing another. So we want to make sure that ultimately, what does everybody want? They want to drive business results. They want to have an engaged culture. They want to have a positive culture. They want to make a positive impact. And they want somebody that's going to come into that role, CTO, CIO, CEO, that's going to stay and get things done and bring people along with him or her. Not that they're going to get people to come along with compliance, but they get people who are committed and eager to do their job, and they understand the meaningful contribution that they're making.
No, that's a great point. What are some common mistakes that candidates make during interviews or in the application materials that can hinder their chances to secure that position?
Well, I'd say right off the top, one thing is they put things on their resume or highlight things on their executive profile that they don't want to do. So you may have done a lot of things in your
Really?
career, You may not want to do those things again. So I would say, whether it's on your LinkedIn profile or on your resume, make sure that what's standing out and highlighted is outcomes based, results oriented, and also those things that you are exceptional at, that you're passionate about, and that you want to do next. Because just because you've done something before doesn't mean you want to do it again. And if you put the things you don't want to do, you're always going to get opportunities that come your way that don't fit where you want to go. So I would say that's one thing. You end up in an interview and they're like, "Oh, you know about blockchain," and they're like, "I don't want to do that anymore," right? So I think it's really important that you have the things on your resume that are important to you and that you want to go after. I would also say that having a summary, that really describes about who you are, not just what you do, but who are you. I think is also a way to really set yourself apart. And so, to answer your question, if you don't have those things, I don't think you're going to set yourself apart.
No, agree. Are there any specific strategies or techniques that a candidate can employ to stand out during the interviewing process and differentiate themselves from other candidates? And I actually have a process of creating the wow factor at each particular step. So let me hear yours.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things here that can happen. First of all, I know a lot of us are doing meetings online, and a lot of interviews and first interviews are happening online. It is crucial that you are doing simple things like looking into the camera, that you are, not sitting up here or down here, that you have the proper space with your camera, that you have the right lighting, that your sound is good. I think it also matters that you have come into the call or the interview in person prepared. And what I mean by that, one way that you can set yourself apart and really be, to use a old Franklin Covey term, strikingly different among candidates, is to send something ahead of time to that person confirming that you're meeting, and even saying, here's the objective or the end in mind, and here are some things that I'd like to learn from you, and here are some things I'd like to impart with you about who I am. That may sound very different, and it is, which is why it will set you apart. Very few people are going to send some type of preconditioned email before they interview, and it really does set you apart. Also, that executive presence, which can mean all kinds of things. I understand that, and those words are used a lot. I would just say using good judgment about coming to the call. You don't have to be in a suit with a tie if you're a male, or in a stuffy suit as a female, but you need to be polished, and you need to be articulate, and you need to be ready to ask the right questions and be prepared, and really be able to tell, what is your value prop? What is it that's going to distinguish you? Because otherwise, George, it is a competitive market, as you know.
It is.
And everybody out there has the skills you have. And everybody's gone to fancy school potentially, or everybody's had 25 years of experience. So it takes every little thing, every little nuance is important. And so I would say those things matter. Also, having a lot of knowledge. I know this sounds like people are thinking, Heather, that's 101. But you wouldn't believe the number of people that come into a meeting with a company and they haven't even researched the company well to understand where they're going, what the obstacles are, what are the financial goals they have to reach. So just being really well prepared and then follow up. Follow up is also key.
No, I agree as far as the whole process of researching a company. And of course, one of the things I speak on with doing the free webinars on Saturday, which is coming up tomorrow, is that you can use ChatGPT now to help you create a really good understanding of the company. It'll pull all the information and get you much better prepared than you would have been in a fraction of the time.
That's right.
Can you provide, here's a good question for networking. Can you provide some insight in roles of networking and personal connections in the executive hiring process, and how candidates can leverage the network to create opportunities?
This is my sweet spot. For any of those that are listening to me that know me well, this is how I've done business my entire career. I've had a lot of experience in business development and in sales in my past, and this is how I do it. It's through networking and referrals. And George, I just want to challenge the word networking, though. I think there's a big difference. There's a paradigm shift that happens when we refer to it and think of it as connecting versus networking.
Yeah.
So connecting, you're not expecting anything in return. Connecting feels more like in the spirit of the Go-Giver book. It's
Yes.
connecting with somebody, it's giving, you're not looking for something in return. And I really do think thoughts matter, paradigms matter. So if you go into a meeting with someone and you think, I'm going to connect with this person, you're going to show up differently than if you go into it with, I'm going to network, because I'm going to get something from this person. So
Yeah, transactional.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's one thing I would say. Secondly, it is also changing your paradigm around where and how you network. So what I mean by that is a lot of times people will say, well, I don't know that many people, or, I've been at XYZ company for 20 years. I've never had to network. I only know people within my company. I push back on that. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And I would recommend that you sit down and create buckets on the computer, on an iPad, on a piece of paper. Create buckets of places in your life, the gym, your place of faith, your neighborhood, your former workplaces, and you start to brainstorm and you dump as many names as you can in those buckets without judgment. And then you go back and you prioritize the ones that you maybe have talked with in recent years or that you feel more comfortable talking with, and you reach out to them and you just say, hey, this is Heather. We haven't talked in a long time. Remember seeing you on the soccer field all those years. I'm in job transition, and I was at XYZ company, saw that you're working here, would love to catch up and just grab a coffee. Now, here's a quick thing, George. Anytime you're doing this, yes, you are hoping to make a connection that makes other connections. So there is something you're wanting out of it. But if you lean in and go into it with, you're going to help that person and figure out a way to help them, whether it's now or in the future, whether it's directly by something you can do or something through somebody in your network, if you show up like that and you let the person know, I saw you're connected to this person, or I saw that you worked at this place. It's important to be honest too. People don't want to bait and switch. So you don't want to get there for coffee and you start talking, to the last 5 seconds you drop, hey, I saw you're connected to this person. Can you connect me? And they're gonna be like, oh, you mean this entire conversation, all she wanted was for me to introduce her to George Murray, right? So I think you got to be careful about that. And every conversation I've ever had connecting with people or networking, I start out by letting them talk with me about them. And inevitably, every time, George, by the end of the conversation, or 99% of the time, people will say, Heather, I've been talking this whole time about what I do. Tell me again, what do you do? How can I help you? Hey, my network is completely open. If I can help you in some way, this has been so helpful. I'd be happy to help you. So that's what I'd say about referrals and networking. Make the buckets, create the list, start contacting people. Don't be paralyzed by the thought of it. Just start reaching out. Be a real person. Make human connection. Reach out to people that you're fond of, that you've had great connection with in the past. I do think most people have good intent and want to help people.
Yeah, no, I agree. A couple of people come to mind when I was in my first job transition. Lenny Newman and Ann Pryor used the terminology tugs, right? George, there are two types of people, tugs, takers and users, givers and sharers, right? The givers and sharers will always have a path. The takers and users will be found out pretty quickly and they'll be ostracized, right? And then the second point is Greg Rye basically told me, he was the second guy I officially networked with, right? In my first job transition. And so he had stated something that really holds dear to me even to this day. He says, learn it a lot younger than I did, George. The more you give, the more you get.
It's true. It's true. And some people, George, would say, oh, that's the long game. It might be the long game, but it's the best game, and it's the sustainable game. So it's the only game, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And one of the things I tell people that's most important, especially in your job transition, is developing a personal board of advisors. All my personal board advisors are people I met in job transition. I would have never had the opportunity to meet such great people if I didn't have that transition there.
It was a big reason why I transitioned into owning my own business with Juliet and doing AvidEdge, honestly, I mean, I spent so much time, intentional time, networking with executives in transition in my former jobs. And I did it because I was so energized by it. I love hearing people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I love having the opportunity to hear and see things that people aren't saying and to be able to encourage and inspire them to greatness. And I would leave the end of my day feeling like I had won. And especially during COVID, George, we all know, oh, that was tough, right? Really tough on everybody. And so to have these meaningful conversations with 1, 2, 3, 5 people a day, where you get to the end of the day and you go, you know what? I didn't sell a darn thing. I didn't move business forward, but I helped somebody. It's just energizing. At least to me, it is. It's energizing. And so
Absolutely.
you do meet so many phenomenal people. And that's another thing. Don't let it be a one-off conversation. I try really hard. I meet a lot of people, but I try to check in or go back and have more than one conversation, at least with a large list of people, so that it's not a one-off thing, but you actually are creating a relationship that's ongoing.
I know that you got to go, but for a few minutes, can you just in closing, are there any other things that we didn't cover that we should cover, or at least our viewers need to know when they're looking for the best opportunity and knowing what employers are looking for?
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to take it at the highest level, at the C level, George, or the VP level, which is where our business tends to focus anyway. But I would say if you are a C level person looking for your next role, we know that those are not a dime a dozen, and we know that there are a lot of you out there. Really dig in hard and decide and know and be very clear about what your personal compass is. And if my friend Heidi's watching, she's going to say, I use those words. And I did get those words from her. But the personal compass is really important because you, again, can come into an organization and you can take over, right? And you can make things happen, but you're going to burn a lot of bridges. Yeah. It's not sustainable. And you're not going to get people on board to help you come alongside and do the job well. If you can come in as that multiplier leader with a personal compass, with high EQ, with the desire to really understand and know the culture and where you want to go, and understand and know the people. Take the time during your onboarding to really get to know people, understand them, understand what's worked and what hasn't, and go to the front lines. They're the people that know the work the best.
Absolutely.
So understand what they're doing. If you do those things, you will set yourself apart, because I get that at a C level, you got to be edgy and you've got to be dominant and you've got to be a driver and you've got to be strong and you've got to be powerful, and it can be lonely. And if you are real and if you have a personal compass, you will always succeed and have more longevity than any of your counterparts out there.
Agreed. Well, Heather, I appreciate it. And how can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can reach Juliet Fox or Heather Lam on LinkedIn, also at www.avidedgesearch.com. We would love to connect with you and talk with you. We meet with people in job transition on a regular basis. We meet with clients who may not be ready to hire someone yet, but they want to know who else is out there and how we do business. We'd love to connect with you too. And really quickly, George, our name, AvidEdge, it's because Juliet and I are avid about everything we do. We are the difference in what we do, and we want to give you the edge that you need in the marketplace, whether you're a candidate and you want transparency for once, you want authenticity, you want integrity, you want people that care about you and know you as a person and care about your story. That's us. If you are a client and you're tired of the regular same old transactional stuff, and you want somebody that's really going to partner with you and be avid about the work that we do to understand your business and your culture and really partner with you for the long term, it's AvidEdge. So that's what I leave with you. Great. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, George. Have a great rest of your day and weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
You as well. Bye.
Bye.
So this is part of the show where we kind of at least identify somebody that either is in between successes or landing. And I'm actually really excited. We have a landing opportunity to discuss and go over a couple of questions on how that person did get, actually did land. It's about 9.5 minutes, so if you don't have 9.5 minutes, you can come back and check us out on YouTube or our Facebook page. But I think it's really valuable. Yvonne Yeste, and we'll talk and you'll listen. So let me see where we're at. Welcome to that part of the show that we try to each week at least identify one person that's in between successes or somebody who's recently landed. And I'm happy to say that we actually have a guest today that recently landed following a process. Yvonne Yeste, who is actually a dynamic technology sales leader, award-winning technology sales maker, passionate about customers, the channel and distribution, manically focused on winning the right way, and perpetually curious. So Yvonne, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that introduction, George.
Absolutely. So you recently landed. So one of the first questions I always try to ask people, what do you wish you knew before you got into transition way too late?
So what I wish that I knew, or really a process that I wish that I followed before this transition happened, was I wish I would have listened to my own advice and to what I recommend to all my team members. And I'll recommend it to anyone who is watching or listening to this. You need to worry about building your brand. You need to build your brand before you experience a transition or before you engage in working on getting your next position. It is important for employers these days to be able to find you online and to understand what you're doing, what you're thinking about, how you're invested in your career. For example, I am in technology, so I feel like it's important for me to be able to post things that relate to showing that I have an understanding of technology, enthusiastic. So getting back to what we were saying, it's really important to spend some time thinking about how you want to appear professionally on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, wherever it is that you post, so that potential employers or potential business partners or investors can understand who you are and that you can demonstrate some knowledge around your business, whatever that business is, whether it's fitness or medicine or engineering or technology or anything in between. You need to take the time to do that, because if you don't do it before your transition, you're going to spend a lot of time doing it after your transition before you find your next spot.
Agreed. What is the most of the off-the-wall advice you actually received and it actually worked?
I don't know that it's so off the wall, but what really worked was something that you really emphasized. One is you have to make a plan. You are going to expend a lot of energy if you are in transition, but you are the one that gets to decide how you're going to do that. You can invest it in responding to every job that looks decent on a job posting board, and you can submit resumes and spend a lot of time tailor making resumes for every job, just to hear nothing, or to be able, or to look at, for example, in LinkedIn, it tells you how many people have applied for a specific role. And you can sit there and go, oh my God, there's 786 other people that applied for this one job. I am never going to get it. And the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to eat at your soul when you do that, because you have no control. And all of the thrash of submitting all these resumes and cover letters, and then getting an automated letter that says, thank you very much for your submittal. We're really busy interviewing other people who aren't you. And if we want to interview you, then we will call you, but don't hold your breath. And you may hear from them 4 months or 6 months later, or you may never hear from them. If you have an interview, since they're doing so many interviews, and sometimes they're putting people through 8 or 9 interview sessions before they make an offer to you, it can destroy your confidence. So you can take all of that effort and you can create a plan. And your methodology is really great, because it doesn't look at just the hiring process. It looks at me and at everybody that follows this plan as a whole person. Your plan includes taking time to get your head together, right? To experience the loss of the job or whatever that transitional, the causing effect of it is, the compelling event is that's making you do that. And then digest it and then deal with it. Also, there's a physical component to it, meditation, yoga, exercise, whatever, something that helps you to settle. And then there's the actual job part of the hunt. When you are creating a list of companies that you want to work for, it is putting you back in control. So you're getting back all the control that you give up when you're responding to hundreds of posts on every job board that you can find. If you want control over your job seeking process, you need that plan. And at the end of every day, you can go down and look at the plan and say, I did the 6 things that I needed to do to keep me on track today. When you wake up in the morning and you feel overwhelmed or upset because you haven't gotten a job yet, where prior to this economy, you might have gotten 6 job offers in a week. It's different now. The whole process of application is different now. So when you pick the companies you want to work for, when you create a plan and then you execute against that plan, you are the one that is in control. And I'm not going to pretend that it is easy, because it is not. It was hard work to get enough information about these companies, to take a look using LinkedIn at what my network was, and then who did I need to know that I didn't already know, and then to play the 6 degrees of separation of who do I need to meet or connect with to get to that one person that is going to be the decision maker for me, either getting a job or having an opportunity to apply for a job. And what surprised me the most, and this was really a surprise, was every single person that I reached out to was so willing to help. No one told me no.
Yeah,
and I want to be
amazing.
clear. I did not ask for recommendations for a role from people that had never met me before and had never heard of me before. And that's because I would not recommend someone where my brand was at risk, recommending someone that I have never met before. But everyone that I wanted to ask for an introduction to somebody else, or questions about a corporate culture or an environment, or what are the skills that they really look for in a job at company X, every single person gave me at least 15 minutes to have a conversation or to introduce me to somebody else that could take me to that next conversation, which eventually led to 5 interviews for 5 different companies in the span of 2 weeks, and to a great offer, which I was finally able to accept.
That's great. Hey, before we wrap up, what's the biggest takeaway you learned through this whole process?
I learned that I can have faith in humanity again. I learned to build trust in other people. I learned that part of the process is also not just asking for that introduction, but offering, what can I do to help you? Because It can't be a one-way conversation. It has to be a 2-way conversation, particularly because as you are meeting people through this journey, you're going to find them again. You may cross them again. In my industry, technology, it's really small. So I will work for this person tomorrow, or they will work for me the week after. It is really important to treat people right. So it's always key to ask, thank you for the help that you've given me. What can I do to help you?
I love it. So just wrapping up, next 30 seconds, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I want to just remind everybody, you are in control of this process. It may feel like you are not. It may feel overwhelming. It may feel like desperation is just around the corner. Your mindset is what is going to change everything that happens as a result of this event. So if you're in the right mindset, you will interview better, you will have more confidence, and having a plan is the first step to have that mindset. And the methodology that George has put together is a great way to create a plan. George, thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. I appreciate your input and I appreciate you. Good luck in your new job.
Thank you.
Your mind will press the